Okay, video 2, paradigms in research. Now, what are paradigms? When we talk about paradigms, paradigms are ways of viewing really the universe, everything around you. They really dictate, our paradigms dictate how we see and interpret the world around us. In educational research, we have several major paradigms. There are actually lots of smaller ones underneath, and when we get down into the finer nitty-gritty of it, we would talk about that in that course, that Introduction to Research course that a lot of programs have. But for the general purposes of this course, I want you to understand that there are really three general research paradigms, and we're going to focus on two. The first one is positivism, the second is interpretivism, and the third is critical theory. And critical theory we're not going to get into a whole lot. It's a growing area. It's definitely an area of research that's important, but as a practitioner and a teacher, it's not exactly something, at least in an introductory level, that you would need to spend a lot of time thinking about. So positivism and interpretivism. What do I mean by that? Well, a positivist views the world really in black and white terms. A positivist approaches things in a way that says the truth is discrete and it's out there. Truth is out there. There's a nugget of truth, and we can find that truth. And that expresses itself in a lot of ways in the scientific method. And so when you talk about things like medical research or pharmaceuticals, that sort of thing, definitely a positivist approach to that is generally accepted. It's actually desired. You want to know for sure if this drug is going to work or not. Now, our critical theory friends they'd come in the side door and say, well, there's other ways to think about this too. And critical theory tends to try and break down all assumptions of any kind. But let's just say in general that the positivist approach is one that would follow generally a scientific method. We can prove or not prove that this method, since we're in the world of educational research, that this method works, or this curriculum works, or this approach works, or this behavioral management system works. We're going to apply the scientific method, and we're going to prove whether it works or it doesn't work. Now, there are a lot of assumptions implicit in that. And one of the biggest assumptions that I think that positivists miss in the educational realm is the idea that people always behave differently. Generally, they behave the same way, but they don't always behave the same way. In the same regions of the United States, in different states, in different districts, they're not always going to behave exactly the same way. They're going to have different backgrounds. They're going to have different home lives. And so in the scientific method, in the positivist approach, we would say that those are confounding variables. We can't control for that. We can't say that we're going to get every kid from this socioeconomic status, every kid in our study is going to be that way. We can't control that background. We can't control what books or how much parents have read to students prior to when we get them to study them in an educational research setting. So, and full disclosure, I have to admit, I am not a positivist, and maybe you got that sense. In the educational realm, I am not a positivist because I do believe that there are nuances. People behave differently. Now, you'll notice that I didn't say that I totally disregard quantitative data, numbers, statistics. Okay, we're going to get into that in a little bit. But right now we're thinking more generally. We are talking about a general approach to how do we know, okay, what's out there. Okay, we're talking about epistemology and ontology, and those are big philosophical words that you may remember from your undergrad philosophy course. I hope you do. But those are general ways of how do we know? What is knowledge? How do we know what we know? Those sorts of things. The positivist approaches things in that way that says we can prove and disprove these things. All right, so that's positivism. That's this video. Next, we'll get into interpretivism, and we're going to continue to talk about how this applies to you as an educator.